Okay, so welcome you back to my playlist for your IGCSE course. And for today, we will be beginning with an entirely new chapter. And the title of the topic is the disease and the immunity. So, for the initial lectures from this topic, we would be looking on to word disease and pathogens are, and then for the second part of this chapter, we will be seeing that what immune responses are and how come our human body would be developing this ability of the immunity. So, if I were to simply talk about the term disease, so the disease simply mean that you have some abnormal state of your mind and the body. Like if I were to quote you an example from the daily life, in winters you suffer from this common cold or common flu, and whenever you have this flu, so you often complain to the individuals around you or the people around you that neither your brain nor your body is working. Okay, so this is how the disease is that abnormal state of the mind and the body that the person develops. So we have to initially see that how many types of the diseases do the human body have in them. So the diseases are broadly categorized into being the contagious diseases and then the non-contagious diseases. Now, if I were to tell you that what the contagious diseases are, so the idea is that they are always caused by the pathogens. Now, what do we mean by the pathogen is these are the microorganisms, and the special thing about these microorganisms is that they would be causing the diseases. Okay, so whenever the disease is contagious and is being caused by the pathogens, so this is very evident that it would spread from one person to another person. Another name that we give to the contagious diseases is also the infectious diseases. And whenever these diseases are caused among the pathogens that are causing them, so we broadly have these bacterial diseases, then there are these funguses with us, then we have these viruses coming, and then we have these protozoans coming with us. So these are the common pathogens, and whenever they would attack your body, so you would develop these contagious or the infectious diseases, and they would for sure spread from one person to another person. Now, if I were to give you an idea about the non-contagious diseases or the non-infectious diseases, so they are never caused by the pathogens, and for sure they would not spread from one person to another person. Like if I were to quote you some of the examples, if there is a person and he suffers from the coronary heart disease, so this is only affecting that particular person, and the coronary heart disease is not due to any pathogen, but rather than due to the coronary arteries being clogged up by the atheromas or by the scabs. So ultimately, this would never spread from one person to another. Likewise, for the diabetic people, those are not in the position to sufficiently convert their excess glucose into the glycogen due to the pancreas not giving enough of the insulin, so they become diabetic. And again, this is not caused by any of the pathogens, so would not spread from the diabetic to a non-diabetic person. If I were to talk about the other two diseases that I have written over here, so one is the rickets with us, other one is the scurvy with us. So these are the non-contagious diseases, and the cause of these diseases is deficiency of some nutrients in the diet. Like if some person was missing vitamin C, so he would suffer from scurvy, and if they were missing vitamin D in their diet, so they would suffer from the rickets, and again they would never transfer from one person to another person. So they are the non-contagious diseases. Now, the other idea is that okay, if our body have this threat of being infected by the pathogen, so by what modes or by what means these pathogens they can pass from one host to another host. And here the first host would be diseased person and the other one would be the normal person. So we must be very much clear that how they are being transmitted from one person to another person. So broadly, we say that the pathogen's transmission can be due to the direct contact or due to the indirect contact, we say. If I were to talk with respect to the direct contact, so what you have to be clear in your mind is that normally our body has got the fluids in it. Like if I were to talk about one of the major fluid that we have got flowing in the blood vessels, so this is blood. And along with that, if I were to talk about the male individual, so in the reproductive tract, they make the semen having the sperm in it, and there would be some of the secretions present in it as well. And likewise, if we talk about the female individuals, so in their reproductive tract, again, they would be producing some secretions in them. So whenever the pathogens they are passed from one person to another person due to the exchange of these body fluids between the persons or between the individuals, then that would be a direct mode of the transmission of the pathogens. Now, how this could be transmitted, like if I take the blood from a donor and if I give it to the recipient, and the donor by some mean was having some pathogen in it, and we directly injected the blood from this person to the other person, so this would be the direct contact of the transmission. Likewise, when the male and the female individual, when they go into the intimacy thing or into the sexual intercourse thing. So over there again, the semen, if it has got some pathogens for the HIV or the gonorrhea, so for sure they would transfer into the female individual who would be the normal, and the same would go for the female individual as well. So this is how that by the direct contact, this is just exchange of the body fluids between the two person. So this would be leading to the transmission of the pathogen. The other thing is indirect contact, and the indirect contact means that in some cases the pathogens they would leave their host, and by the host what we mean is on which the pathogen was attacking. So it would be carried by some intermediate medium or the vector. Like if there was a person and he sneezed, and when he sneezed, so the droplet they got accumulated on some surface, and that surface would become contaminated surface. And if mistakenly we would touch that contaminated surface, so we would get this pathogen in our body. Likewise, some of the pathogens they also happen to be transmitted with the help of the air when the person they sneeze in case of the tuberculosis. So they release the droplets or the aerosols out of their body and the other normal person can catch them. Likewise, if we were eating food contaminated with the pathogens or if the water was contaminated, so this again would be an indirect mode of transmission of the pathogens. And for some diseases, there is involvement of some vectors, and these vectors usually they are the insects. Like you hear this word malaria in your daily life or the dengue thing in your life. So this is caused by a protoctist, which has plasmodium, but the mosquito will transfer it from the disease to a normal person. So I hope you would be clear with this direct and indirect contact now. Now, moving onward, here we would see that, okay, if we have some specific mode of transmission, then we must be in position to quote some of the common diseases that gets transmitted in that way. Like if there is a situation or the mode of the transmission is the presence of the droplets in air, then the examples of the diseases are the common cold and the influenza and also the tuberculosis and the COVID you have seen recently. So their mode of transmission is by the presence of the droplets in the air. And if I were to talk about the other diseases, the cholera and the typhoid and the dysentery kind of a situation, so their mode of transmission would be contaminated food or water. And as we have seen that the indirect mode of the transmission was also involving that whenever the normal individual would be touching some contaminated surface, so by that the diseases that gets transmitted. So among them we have this athlete foot, we have this salmonella. Okay. And along with that, if there is a situation of an indirect mode of transmission and that included the insect bite, so the people they can suffer from the malaria or they can also suffer from the dengue fever as well. So here from this table, you just must know that what are the methods of transmission and what particular disease pathogen they would get transmitted in this way. So I'm very hopeful that you would be clear with the word pathogen, with the word disease, and the methods of the transmission of the diseases.